Right now, everyone's talking about numbers, unemployment numbers, crime statistics, foreign population percentages, but numbers alone don't tell you the truth. They just tell you what someone counted, and that's not the same thing.
Business owner, educator, and lifelong observer of politics and economics, making sense of complex issues.
So if we take what's happening with Trump right now, and he's just fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he didn't like the numbers. And yet, the supporters that are talking about those numbers are citing numbers from the same agency to try and convince you that he was right to do that. So it's selective. They're saying on one hand that this person didn't do the numbers right, and here's the proof being numbers that that person made. So, if we make everything corrupt, what have we got left to use? So we have to have some faith that people are just they're not going to make up numbers to possibly get a result that they want. This is what always bothered me about the Biden letting in millions of people. This idea that he let in millions of people. One, a lot of those were counted more than twice because they went in and out of the border gate. But apart from that, massive overcounting. The suggestion was that these numbers were being brought in so that the ultimate goal was that one day they could contribute to electoral results in certain seats that led to a voting favor for the Democrats. It was just a fairly preposterous plan with so many variables that were required to fall into place. Again, what I like to call one of those Goldilocks situations where everything has to be just right if you want to even get close to the result that people are suggesting he was trying to get. So anyway, that's one of the things. It's this use of numbers and distrust of numbers, and then, selectively picking numbers that you like. And sometimes even the numbers that we have are correct, but they tell another story. So they tell a bigger truth. And this is something I want to tell you about that has happened in Japan and is related to crime statistics. It's related to the police, and it has a lot of variables that you need to consider before you just look at the result and go, well, therefore, foreigners are committing a lot of crime. So I'm not going to, as usual, I'm not going to tell you all the numbers, but just understand that foreigners in prison in Japan or in the system, in the courts and so forth, are way overrepresented. Like 3 times what it should be. Actually, I think it's more, but let's just go with that. It's 3 times what it should be. So what does that tell you when you see that? Does it say to you, okay, there is a massive amount of foreign criminals coming into Japan, and if that was the case, then their immigration officials need to up the ante there? Or does it tell you that they're targeting foreigners? Because when we set a speed trap on the side of the road, before that speed trap was there, 0 people were speeding, according to the statistics. But then in an afternoon, they caught 60 people. And so we can say, well, whatever percent of the vehicles on the road that day were speeding. If you don't count it, you don't see it. If you count it a lot, you see it a lot. So I think you've got the picture there, and I'll just tell you a story related to that. There was a directive a few years back now, and it came from the head of the police, and it was sent to the police, all the police stations and all the police, and it said, Japan's seeing an increase in foreigners coming, and you need to improve your English. And we're not going to pay for you to go and study English. We're going to tell you what you should do. And what you should do is, when you go out on the beat, when you go to do your shift, target foreigners. Go up to foreigners and practice your English. That was a directive from the head of the police to all the police to go and do that. Go onto the street, into society, look for non-Japanese looking people, go up to them and practice your English. Now, how do you think a policeman approaches a person to practice their English? Do you think they go up to them and say, "Hi, welcome to Japan. I'm a local police officer. May I have a quick chat with you?" No. They go up to them and say, "Can I see your identification? What are you doing here? Where are you from? How old are you? What's your occupation?" And all this information to practice their English. Not because they're looking for something. This is not like it is, I know, in the States, where you have this situation where the police are trained to look for a minor detail so that they can possibly find something else. Or there's some interesting statistics about that too. But, it was not to catch people out. It was a directive to practice your English. Well, guess what? If you do that, you're going to find things. Now, let's extend that to Japanese people. If the police just randomly started going up to Japanese people, they're also going to find stuff. They're going to find things wrong. But guess what? They weren't doing that. They were going up to foreigners. So there we have a statistic that's totally warped because people have been targeted. Yes, great if they found things. But I've heard lots of stories of people, in some cases, people working in Tokyo, harassed by the police nearly every day as they came out of the station because they looked so non-Japanese. So apart from the problems with that, it skews the statistics, and we get a story that says, look at this, all these foreigners are committing all this crime. Now, the reality about immigrant crime committed by people from other countries is, obviously it's lower in number than the domestic population because there's a different amount of population, but per capita, immigrant populations are always lower than domestic populations, because domestic populations are made up of a more diverse group of people than foreign populations. Foreign populations in a country are generally made up of, I can't say a similar group of people, but one part of a society in general. It's not as diverse as the domestic population. So one more thing about the data on crime is that when you target that community, the foreign community in your country, what you do find a lot of that you won't find in the domestic population is administrative crimes. Not crimes, but offenses. So not in the States you have things like felonies and all that, but I just mean things like, you're not going to find a domestic citizen overstaying their visa or having their documents not in order. And that you will find with a lot of immigrants or a lot of holiday makers or a lot of people obviously also in the country illegally. You're going to find all these things. So this makes up a large part of those statistics too. So when you see all these people in court, and you may also see them in jail because they're being deported or so forth, it does skew the figures again to look like a high amount of crime. So it's interesting that the numbers are being looked at, it seems to me, a bit more than usual lately. And I think that's something to do with what happened with the Bureau of Labor Statistics and what I've been talking about on my social media about Japan. And it's helpful if we bear in mind that the result of numbers doesn't always tell the complete story.
If you're still here, honestly, you have no idea how much it helps if you subscribe. I'll keep these coming.